Owning It with me, Mo. If you write it and it flows, it's poetry or prose. If you write it and it works, then you're writing free verse. It's about owning it.
You guys have joined me today. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with the girl. I appreciate that. Big facts. Hi. Thank you for joining me. I'm glad you guys could join. And so we're going to get right into it. Today, we are going to be doing a workshop called Owning It. And this is my process for writing poetry and prose. I would implore you guys to grab a pen and paper. I want y'all to write with me while we're doing this, and we'll kind of go through the process. So if you're down to write, and if not, just kind of chill, and you'll figure out, or you'll learn a little bit about how I write my poetry pieces. This is really grounded from a poetry piece that I wrote for the BAM project. And that BAM project was preparing for a piece that I was going to record for Juneteenth. So we pre-recorded it and then shared it with everybody on Juneteenth. Well, Juneteenth, of course, is a special day for Black people, and so I wanted to really encapsulate family, the Black family, the dynamic of the Black family in that piece. You will find it on my Instagram. It is called Fighting for the Crown. It's also on my YouTube channel, and Fighting for the Crown really was developed through the same process that I'm sharing with you guys today. So if you watched that poem, if you enjoyed the video, then you'll be getting the behind-the-scenes scoop today for how that piece was created. Also, I want this workshop to be interactive, so if you guys would please put an emoji in the chat, just let me know that you're here, that you're rocking with me. I would definitely appreciate that. And again, if you have time, I'll give you guys a few seconds here to grab a pen and paper, and we're going to write, because that's what we do. So I've got my pen here, and a notebook nearby. Of course, when I don't actually have a notebook, I'll use the apps or the draft in my email. Anytime that something comes to me other than when I'm in bed, I'll write something. And you know, those pieces sometimes, hi, thank you for joining me when the sun goes down, but those pieces sometimes are what I'll use in a situation where someone's asked me to provide a poem. And so this is a little bit about that process. The first part here that I want to hit on, of course, you know, I'm going to introduce myself to those who don't know me. My name is Mo. I am the creator of Solidarity & Company, which is an advocacy-based brand that encompasses apparel, the Mix of Black Girl Magic podcast, as well as my love and knack for poetry and prose. With this, within the next year, I do plan to publish a book of poetry, and so you guys are getting the inside scoop on that. And what I do, if anyone were to ever ask, you know, in an academic setting, this is free verse poetry. So we are writing free verse poetry. I chose this type of poetry and I use this type of poetry in my process because it is poetry that is free from limitations. Oftentimes there is, you know, certain types of poems like limericks or sonnets, haikus even, that employ you to write in a certain style, using a certain number of syllables, using the correct amount of stanzas. Well, free verse poetry is poetry that is free, just like the name, and it is free from limitations. And what I'll do is interpret from that word, free verse, and actually start to write my poems like a song. So if you have ever looked at the lyrics of a song, you notice that there is a chorus and there is a verse, okay? So of course, poetry that is free from limitations does not require that you put it in a form of a song. It is just the analogy that I'll be using throughout this workshop that really helps you to own it. Just like when you're singing a song or you pick a song that is your favorite or you have a song that describes you, that song stays with you and you own it. You're like, this is my song. That my song is you owning it. And this is my poem. My poem is me owning it. So from there, we already know what we're doing in an academic setting or, you know, anywhere fancy schmancy that anybody asks you, what are you doing here? What is this piece? And you can tell them very clearly and with confidence that I write free verse poetry. And that is poetry that is free from limitations and boundaries. That allows you to write in the shape of the thing that you're talking about. You can write with spaces as big as your head. You can write one word per line. So just removing those limitations really allows you to be as expressive and creative as you are. Hi, Taylor. Thank you for joining. And so what we're going to do from here, of course, we've already discussed that we are writing free verse poetry, which is poetry that is free from limitations. When you remove those limitations, you can be as creative as you want to be. And that is why this form of poetry sticks with me, because I believe in removing the bounds and the limitations that are placed on us as Black people, as Black women, and however you identify. Remove those limitations. Talk about bursting through those limitations in your free verse poetry, and it becomes something that people want to hear. So I would love for you, Taylor, to actually grab a pen and paper, and we are going to actually write and work on creating a poem together. Let me know or put an emoji in the chat when you have your pen and paper ready. So I've got my pen here. I showed that I have a bucket of pens. I literally have a bucket of pens. You can probably see that right there on the side. And I keep them nearby. I also have a collection of books. Whenever I lack inspiration, I can read how someone else has written, and that'll kind of push me in the direction. Like I'm reading a paragraph, I'm like, I like that sentence. How does that resonate with me? And let that lead me. So the format or free verse poetry really helps to get the idea that the verse of the poetry is written like a song, and it's about owning it. Just like when you hear a song and you hear that song, and you're like, that's my song. Well, when you're writing a poem, you kind of feel that same way, like that's my poem. And so I use the analogy of a song in the way that I wrote the poem for the BAM Project's Juneteenth celebration. So I'm sharing that same process with you here, and the format that I use is that of a song. So every song, I pick a word or phrase that feels good for me, feels good to me, and I start from there. And maybe that I picked up on a beat, like, and so then whatever words come to me to like freestyle into that beat, remember this is free verse poetry, then if it catches with me and it sticks with me, then I'll write it down. So if you guys want in the chat, place a word, right? And as a freestyle artist, I'm also able to take whatever word you place in the chat, and I will use that. Hi, Demi. I will use that word in the verse or in the chorus, rather, that we are going to be creating. Same to you, same to you. So if you guys would put a word in the chat, I like peace. Put a word in the chat, and that's going to help me to develop the chorus based off your words. And if you see a word in the chat that you like, pick that word, and that's going to be the topic for you. So at the Juneteenth event where I did Fighting for the Crown, it was given to me by the person who asked me to speak or to ask me to share my poem to write about the crown. And so I already had the word that was the topic, and I used that topic along with the beat that developed to create the rest of the piece. So that piece goes, if I didn't win the battle, I could still win the war, because a kingdom for queens worth fighting for. And if I ever lost a battle, I could still win the war, because a kingdom for queens worth fighting for. If I ever lost a battle, I could still win the war, because a kingdom for queens worth fighting for. So I've got optimism, I've got peace. When the sun goes down, do you have a word? Or T. Taylor, do you have a word? These are beautiful artists, beautiful spirits with us now. So I also implore you guys to go and follow each other. But there, I love optimism. Yellow, okay, what a beautiful word. Abundant, I love that. And peace. So you guys pick whatever word works for you. I'm going to give y'all a word here as well. That's what came to my mind. And you guys feel free to pick whatever word. Grace, what a beautiful word. Okay, I love words, so this is beautiful. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is open my handy dandy notebook. Okay, and I've got my pen. This is a fancy smancy drawing pen, water-based pigment ink marker. So yeah, fancy smancy pens I like, but I'm also, you know, a girl that's a little low maintenance, so my favorite pen is a big. I love an old school big pen. So we're going to start writing our course, guys, from these words. And the course should be about, I would say, anywhere from 1 to 4 lines that you feel resonate with the word that you chose. And what I'm going to do from here is set a quick timer, and I will give you 2 minutes to write your chorus. And I'll let you guys know as that timer is ending. I'm going to write my chorus as we speak. Remember, the chorus is about that rhythm, that feeling of, which will be the first stanza of your poem. And the timer starts now. That's a vibe. So whenever you're ready, drop an emoji in the chat, and we'll move forward here. Okay, good. So what's next is going to be our verse, right? So we've got our choruses here. Doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to be perfect. We've got our choruses set, and now we are going to move into the verse. Thank you all so much for your beautiful words. They really inspired me, and hopefully you like this piece that I'm creating. But right now, it's just about the journey. It's just trusting the process. So don't edit, don't worry about it, leave what you wrote. Don't even read it. Just leave what you wrote. And we're going to continue into developing. Also think about, who is this for? And so those are the 2 key points that I think about when developing the verse. Where do I want it to go? Do I want you to feel sad when you read this? Do I want you to feel happy? Do I want you to feel proud? Do I want you to feel full? All those things are important when you're writing your verse. So I take that with me, and then I also think about, who is it for? Who asked me to write this verse? Where will I be performing this poem? And the audience. Will it be an audience of my peers? Will it be an audience of kids? Where are you going, and who is it for? So if you guys have a second to write that down, I want you to make sure that you have those 2 questions in mind as you develop this poem. Who is it for? And where are you going? And where are you going literally means, where are you going with this poem? Are you going to go into the darkness? Are you going into the light? Are you going into a place where you feel proud? Where are you taking people? Because each poem, each piece that you read as a poem, whether it's short or long, it takes you somewhere. It takes you on a journey. It's not like a novel where the plot is really developed. It's really interpreted loosely into where does it fit you. So where are you going? Where do you want your audience to go when they read your poem? That's something that I take into account. So when I'm developing the verse, what I'm taking into account here is also these 2 things. Who is it for? Where are you going? And then what's most important here is, how do I want to feel? Feeling is important because it's about owning it. And when you are owning how you feel or what you want other people to feel, you really are more capable, I think, of delivering a piece that you're proud of and delivering a piece that people connect with. So in this verse, I've got a few tips here for when you're writing your verse. We're not writing it yet, but in this verse, you want to, trust the process. Don't go back and read what you've written, just write. And you're trusting that process. When you're there, you are writing short, quick lines. You are writing, not a whole full sentence. You're writing pretty much broken language so that you can vent. You can get out all of your thoughts quickly. Short lines will allow you to vent, and you are also not worried about the length. The length does not matter. You can write a 20-page essay, long poem, or you could write a short, quick poem. Poetry and prose are interchangeable. So if you have a short line that you feel like, hey, I want to continue that sentence onto the next line. That becomes prose when you're writing poetically without the boundaries or the limitations that are placed on sentences. So the verse here is going to be where we get started. And in the verse, I am going to develop 2 things here. I'm going to develop where I want this poem to go. I'm going to keep in mind who it is for, and I'm going to trust my process. I'm going to write short lines that allow me to vent out everything I have to say about this. And then I'm not concerned with the length. I'm going to talk, in a sense. Talk like I'm talking to my best friend. I'm going to write like I'm talking to my best friend. And you know how when you're on the phone with your best friend, like you feel like you just get it all out and you talk until either life makes you go do something else or you're like, okay, I've said everything I need to say and I need to move on. That's the feeling that you want from a poem. So if you guys are still here rocking with me and can put an emoji in the chat or just let me know that you're still here rocking with me, I'm going to set the timer and we are going to write our next piece of this poem. It is going to be the verse, or really the meat and potatoes of the piece. So while we're getting into it, think about where you're going, think about who it's for. If it's a crowd of 7,000 people, I might have something that allows me to get really loud. If it's a really intimate setting, I might be a little bit softer or quiet. And I think about where I'm going. Do I want this crowd to be moved into action by what I'm saying, or do I want these people to really feel what it feels like? Thank you. What I'm saying, and be somber. So think about how you want people to feel, and if people feel what you feel or what your goal was for them to feel, you both are having this mutual connection. It is really a vibe, and you know how it is when you got a good vibe. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes again, and we are going to write our verse with those tips in mind. So we are starting now. This has been a vibe. So if you guys are as happy with your poems as I am right now, I just am really able to release, really vent how I feel about things, and it has all emerged from a word that was typed in the chat on this live. So yeah, that's that. Free from limitations. We have developed a course so far through your participation. Thank you so much, guys. I am so grateful that you guys have joined me. We have developed our verse, keeping in mind who it is for, where we want to go, and how we want to feel. We are writing free verse poetry that is free from limitations. And we are learning to just trust the process, to writing short lines, to vent everything like we were talking to our best friend, not being concerned about the length of what it is that we're writing or trying to say. And you guys have joined me today. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with the girl. I appreciate that. Big fact. So whatever you have is beautiful, it is purposeful, it is meant to be written, and it is so. So we will move forward here, and we are going to begin editing. Editing is the best friend of a poet, and a poet is the best friend of an editor. A writer is the best friend of an editor, and editor is the best friend of a writer. And I say this because there is no disconnect here. There's nothing for an editor to edit if the writer has not written anything, and there is nothing for the writer to publish if the writer has not edited what they've written. So this is an integral step. Editing is super important, and I cannot tell you guys how literally I've written these long poems and then they end up going back to this first stanza of this chorus, and that's said enough. It gave me the feeling that I wanted to feel. It was for the people who it meant to be for, and it was going where I needed to go. So I've written this long verse, and the verse wasn't necessary. The verse maybe could be used or applied to a different project, but sometimes it is that you have said what you needed to say in that moment. I'm going to share with you here in just a moment a little piece that I wrote preparing for this workshop. And I just want to give you guys an idea of what I have written using the same format, right? So the word for me yesterday was green. Today I've chosen a new word based off what you placed in the chat. Green plants dance in the sunlight. When we see green plants dance in the sunlight, it reminds us that we too are plants and that we too are rooted in the earth. Green reminds me not to be envious of the trees that live for free and the birds that fly with no direction. Green reminds me that money isn't everything, that everything isn't money. Some things are invaluable and indescribable by their color. When I see green plants dancing in the sunlight and the sunlight dancing in the green plants, as they absorb the blue water and the red blood and the brown skin of my people shed in the forest of freedom, I know that green is the color of the land that I too am owner of, steward of, and will return to. I too am a green plant dancing in the sunlight, and the sunlight dances in me. That developed from the word green. That was my chorus and my verse. And if I were to be performing this piece, I might repeat that. So in my editing process, I can say, hey, did I write enough? Did I implore people to feel how I wanted them to feel? And was this for who I intended to write it for? Also, what we've just written here now, I'm going to ask that you guys will take 2 minutes to edit what you've written. I'm going to set the timer, and we are going to take 2 minutes to edit. When you're editing, take out anything that you feel like is unnecessary. Add something that you feel like you forgot to say. Read what it is that you've written, and then after this 2 minutes, if you would like, you can jump into the live here with me and share what you've written. All right, guys, wrap it up. Whew, this session of writing and editing is so therapeutic. Now, I'm going to take this time to just read what I wrote, perform it in my head to see if I like the feel of it. Okay, so I am ready. If you guys are, I will go ahead and share what has been created in this moment with you all. And if you are here rocking with me still, please feel free to jump into the chat and you can share your own. What I've got here is a beautiful piece that I am happy to share with you. The word I chose was grace. And with grace, I present to you this poem. Gracefully I embrace thee, touching spirits with my ease, See, what you have given me is the same thing God gives his children, grace and peace. Art thou full of grace? You have been bestowed by the Creator to bring forth generations who know the light of the world and will be the light of the world gracefully. I embrace thee, and thou shalt be hugged with the strength of angels and the might of titans. Try then to give yourself some grace, for you will then give yourself something God gives his children. Gracefully, I embrace thee, touching spirits with my ease. See, what you have given me is the same thing God gives his children, grace and peace. Art thou full of grace and peace? You have been bestowed by the Creator, and I embrace thee, touching your spirit with my ease, gracefully. And so what I've just done in this moment is to develop a course with you all, to write out the verse, repeating the chorus through the verse, ending it in a way that delivered the feeling that I wanted you guys to feel. I know that this is a piece that I can share with you, and it may need to be edited a little more even after this live, because I like to spend just as much time editing as I do writing. And so if you guys would like to share the piece you developed with me, send it to me in the DMs. I will let you know what I think of it. And of course, what is most important here is that whatever you've written, whatever you've vented, by trusting your process into creating a free verse poem, you have to trust you. You have to be you. You have to be your authentic self and stand behind whatever you've written, 10 toes down. That means owning it. Owning that this is your poem, just like that might be your song. This is written for you, by you, to express you to us. And anything FUBU, for us, by us, is going to be received in the way that you can feel good about sharing a piece of you with others. Whether you think it's good or you think it's bad is irrelevant. Own it. When you've written it and it feels how you want it to feel, it will do well for whoever it's intended for. And you know that you went and you took your reader or your listener, your audience, where you want it to go. And so today, I wanted you all to go with me to a place where I can own it, where I can own my grace, where I can own my ease. You guys have joined me today. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with the girl. I appreciate that. Big facts.